Barclays and the Department for International Trade have signed a 5-year partnership that will support UK businesses to grow and expand through international trade. It's our aspiration to help more businesses grow and succeed through trading overseas in order to secure their long-term prosperity. Now, we know how difficult and time-consuming it can be for SMEs to research the global marketplace. So rather than focus upon different international regions, we've worked with our friends at the DIT and other partners to make it as easy as we can for time-poor business owners to access key export insight by creating a series of on-demand sector-focused videos. By looking at key sectors, we can help businesses understand where the global markets are and therefore reduce the time that they need to spend looking for these new opportunities. These videos will point businesses in the right direction and ensure that the support and insight is focused around their activity. My name is Paul Bowman from Barclays, and I'm delighted to introduce Danny Dunne, the Deputy Director of the Clean Growth and Energy Transition Team at the Department for International Trade, who's going to talk to us about how you can expand your business internationally and share some practical advice for businesses involved in this sector. Now, the views and opinions he expresses are his own and do not constitute advice from Barclays. And also note that each business is different, and we recommend that you carry out your own independent research before you make any decisions that will impact your business. So Danny, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Not a problem. Could you please tell us a little more about the Department of International Trade and your overall role in supporting businesses?
Sure. So the Department for International Trade was set up in 2016, and we have 4 overarching objectives. The first is around securing free trade agreements post our exit from the EU. The second is around attracting foreign direct investment. The third is to support businesses to export. And the fourth is to champion the rules-based system.
Excellent. Thinking of your particular sector, the clean growth and energy transition sector, where do you see the opportunities for UK businesses looking to grow through exporting?
So everyone the world over is undertaking growth in the clean energy space. So we see lots of opportunity in small modular reactors in the future, in civil nuclear. We see lots of opportunity in offshore wind. We see lots of opportunity in hydrogen and carbon capture, which we're deploying rapidly in the UK. And we see opportunities in decommissioning across the whole energy spectrum, but particularly in oil and gas in the near future.
Excellent. Thinking of UK SMEs, what do you think tends to be the best route to market in these regions?
So what we try to do in DIT is to partner SMEs with larger companies, tier 1s, developers, whether they are from the UK or from third markets. So the best way for SMEs to access these opportunities is to reach out to their international trade advisor in their region, who will put them in contact with us. And we run several campaigns around each of these technologies and the markets that we prioritize. And through those mechanisms, we can ensure that SMEs with the relevant expertise and experience can be part of the offer that we put on the table for these opportunities.
So Danny, what are the key non-financial considerations that businesses should factor in when considering expanding internationally?
There's 2 that I think I've mentioned. The first is naturally understanding the opportunity, which is something that we can really help with our relationships on the ground that we have all over the world. And I think the second that builds from that is relationships. So understanding the partners that you want to work with and how you can help them and how they can help you. For example, in decommissioning, we have a lot of opportunity emerging in places like Australia, Brunei, Thailand, Indonesia. And it's the relationships that we have on the ground with the procuring authorities there and the developers, whether they're from the UK or elsewhere, that can give you access to those opportunities. So the relationships are really important.
Great segue into my next question, Danny. Thank you. How can DIT help businesses identify partners with which to trade?
So we have people on the ground all over the world looking for opportunities and partners every day. And we also have in the UK a network of international trade advisors who work with and through us and our overseas network to pull together the opportunities and the capability. We deliver things like Meet the Buyer events, we deliver trade missions, we take a presence at key international events, and all of these are about trying to help UK suppliers match up with procuring authorities, so we can help in that regard.
That's brilliant. And I think the things such as the trade events and using local consular activities is something that is significantly underrated. So thank you very much for doing that. So Danny, many thanks for your guidance and insight today. It's great to see so many opportunities for businesses and to also hear of the support available to access these markets from the Department for International Trade. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to say that we are also joined today by Arshad Dadabhoy, who is a trade and customs specialist at the Institute of Export and International Trade. Now, the Institute is a key supporter and facilitator of international trade within the UK, and they provide practical guidance and advice for all sizes of business in all sectors. Arshad, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Paul. Thank you.
Perhaps you could give us a brief overview, please, as to how the Institute supports businesses who may be looking to trade overseas.
Yeah, sure. So our website, Paul, is export.org.uk. And on there, you will find a comprehensive suite of products and services that we offer businesses that are keen on doing international trade. One of our most popular products are public courses where companies can book a course and spend a day online learning about introduction to importing or advanced exporting, controlled goods, what they are, how we handle them, or if SPS, rules of origin, particularly important at the moment with some of the free trade agreements. How can I take advantage of preference, for example, and export duty free? What are Incoterms and what responsibilities and risks that we have? So there's a whole suite of courses there. On top of that, we can deliver those courses on site, so we can bring an expert into your company and into your training room and deliver those courses there too. We also offer consultancy. So if you're thinking of a free port or a bonded warehouse or inward processing, or have a compliance or a SOP that needs writing, we can send an expert in for that too. Our extremely popular customs health check sends an expert into your organization, and they'll have a chat with your colleagues, look at your processes, look at your paperwork, have a walk around your factory and warehouse, and at the end of the day, a few days later, they'll produce a report, an unbiased, fresh pair of eyes report, highlighting any potential areas of non-compliance, highlighting training and development needs, and that's something then you've got to check your systems against how compliant you are. We also have Vega. So if you have a sickness or a long-term absence and you need to parachute somebody in on an interim position in a compliance-related role or an export or import-related role, we could send an expert in and support with that too.
That's great. And I know from personal experience, we've supported from Barclays with lunchtime and learn seminars, which I know businesses have found incredibly helpful. And as I say, many of our colleagues have gone through the Institute's international trade examinations to enable us to have better quality conversations and help more businesses trade internationally. So plenty of ways for businesses to access the Institute's services then. We heard earlier from Danny Dunne from the Department for International Trade about the global opportunities for the energy transition and clean growth sector. Now, Danny took us through some of the opportunities in this particular environment, as well as within carbon capture and the decommissioning sector, especially in Australia, Brunei, Thailand and Indonesia. And we know of other recent successes for UK businesses in Spain and Taiwan. It's a sector that will only continue to grow in size and importance. But right now, what do you and the Institute see as the biggest barriers for new exporters into these regions, and how can they overcome them?
So anything in the energy sector, it's an exciting sector, absolutely, a big sector, and anything to do with it, whether it's traditional, so fossils, oil, gas, or the newer, greener energies. The two key barriers that we see here is investment. Anything, if you look at fossil, there's an exploration, extraction, refining, and similarly with the newer, greener energies, there's that research, innovation, development, and rollout. So we see that the energy sector is an investment-heavy sector, and one of the barriers for entry into this sector is the investment that's required. And that can be made easy. Barclays are able to support with that. There's perhaps consortiums and things that we can that companies can look at and to overcome those barriers. And the second key barrier that we see is scalability. Energy has to be scalable. It has to be exportable. Not just that, but it needs to be scalable. It needs to be. It's the blood of any country or an economy, and energy needs to be reliable, dependable. So anyone who's thinking of looking at this and moving into a particular country, into exporting a particular green energy or anything like that, needs to think about scalability. How am I going to scale this up? And how am I going to manage the requirements of a particular country or region with an alternative form of energy?
Thank you. I think that scalability is incredibly important, especially for energy producers. And of course, this particular sector is wider to a degree than just the producers. There are the consultants that may be within that sector helping inform some of those conversations and some of that decision-making process, as well as some of the niche operators that are helping to advance it, be that, for example, energy being produced through waves and the development from energy tech. So really helpful to understand that from a scalability perspective as well. Thinking then around this particular sector and thinking of some of the challenges around licensing, documentation or certification that business operating in these regions may face, what are some of the most effective ways to manage these challenges?
So it's having conversations with the countries or the authorities of the countries that you're planning on exporting this product to. So in terms of, here in the West, most of our energy companies are privatized and in private sector hands. But in some of the countries that you've already mentioned, Brunei and others and so forth, they're still they're state-owned enterprises. And so those conversations will need to take place in terms of how do we supply, what the route to market will be. Are we going to be setting up a new joint venture in that country? Are we going to be setting up a new entity there, or can we export and sell it to you and you will run it? So it's those conversations and those challenges that the energy, a green or alternate energy provider will have to have those conversations, whether it's patenting, licensing, joint venture. There will be a number of agreements in place in terms of how to manage that. How are we going to channel those energies through different states, possibly, potentially, what sort of agreements or sharing or rights that companies may have? What permits will we need? Do we need a permit to operate there? Are we going to have to partner with a network or share someone else's network? And what sort of discussion that will take place with there, and what arrangements will take place, how much revenue will be had with another provider. So there's the ways to manage this would be probably to look at consultants, look at energy providers, accountants, lawyers. It's quite a complex area. As it is with traditional fuels, it's going to be very, very similar with the newer, greener energies.
Thank you. I think that point around use of consultants may be really interesting. I think as well that the mix between public sector and also private ownership of partners that businesses within the UK may need to look to work with will be incredibly important, no matter what aspect of the sector that they're involved. Going back to the earlier point that you were making about the fact that many aspects of this particular industry and this particular environment are in effect needing to be scaled so that the greatest benefit in terms of costs but also efficiencies can be realized. So thank you very much for that. Now, thinking of those particular aspects, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And I think therefore listening to other people's questions can really help us get a better handle on a particular set of circumstances. So with that in mind, what are the most frequent questions being asked of the Institute at the moment by businesses looking to export to these regions and in this particular sector?
Well, how do I export it? Where do I export it to? Where do you think my market is? is the product patentable? Is there's any patent sort of, can it be patented, and how do I patent it? What sort of agreements will I need? What do I need to consider in the agreement that I'm going to enter into? Questions like that are coming through. Is the country where I'm going to trade with, is it sanctioned, or there is a demand there? Am I going to be breaking any laws by shipping this particular technology, and will my rights be protected in terms of IP? So a lot of questions coming through, because there's a lot of innovative energies. The UK has got a lot of innovation going on here, and many companies, and some of these companies are concerned about IP and protecting that. Royalty arrangement, for example, if we're going to be shipping a particular piece of equipment that's going to generate the energy in a particular region, and it's going out at a lower price on the basis that they'll be paying royalty. How do I police that? What sort of arrangements are in place? How can I put a royalty agreement together? Where will it be enforceable? So lots of questions are coming through.
That's really helpful. And I think when we're talking about new tech environments, some of those challenges around, almost creating the way in which we do business within this particular sector is incredibly important. And it's almost a new playing field that many of the businesses that are perhaps listening to this need to think about, need to get their head around. And I think, speaking to the Institute and getting some guidance and advice, but also then, understanding who else that they can go to get further information will be incredibly important. So there's a huge amount for businesses to think about, explore and prepare for when looking to export efficiently and safely. So Arshad, thank you very much for the guidance that you and the Institute have provided. And I know, having worked with the Institute on a number of initiatives before, that the expertise provided is valued by so many different types of clients and parties across the economy. And it's great that you've been able to support this series of videos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
And now over to David Foreman. Now David is one of the leaders within Barclays. He's got a special interest within the environmental and the sustainability in the clean energy sector. And he's someone who's well versed in one of our key areas, the Northeast's thriving renewables and sustainability aspects. So David will be giving us an overview on some of the ways in which Barclays is supporting clients within this particular sector. First of all, hello, David, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, Paul.
Now, before we actually start, the views and opinions David's going to express are his own and don't constitute advice from Barclays. Also, please note that each business is different, and we do recommend that you carry out your own independent research before you make any decisions that will impact your business. So, David, perhaps first of all, you can give us a bit of an overview about Barclays business and the teams that you've led and are leading at the moment.
Thanks, Paul. I think just describing my area of the region, the Northeast, I lead a team of relationship managers and directors. They work in what we term the SME market, which is turnovers of 1 million to 6.5 million. And that is across a wide spread of sectors.
That's great, David. Thank you very much for that. Now, turning to the matter of international trade and exporting, what are our clients telling us about the challenges that they are facing when trading internationally?
It's a good question, Paul. I think clients want to understand the benefits of exporting first and foremost, what impact it will have on their existing business, what will the additional administration requirements be, and how do they resource those. Additionally, they'll want to know how they identify these new opportunities, and having identified them, what they then do about that. So I suppose the next point is, what are the key considerations that our clients ask about? Perhaps I'll run through these in a bit more detail. But the first one is documentation and regulation. In the UK, that might be quite straightforward to our clients, but that documentation can change quite significantly when we look at overseas markets. The next area, I think, linked to that as well, is the cultural aspect of dealing with overseas clients. That can be something as straightforward as language barriers, even if the client does speak English, but it can be more how business is done in a certain way, all the way through to what terms of trade might be as well. And finally, on that point as well, is what might term ease of insight. It's actually how would a customer of ours find out more about the person that they're going to do business with, how they check them out, how would they find out about the strength of the potential client as well, their ability to deliver.
And I think that's really important. Thank you, David. There is almost a a little piece here about we don't know what we don't know, and that element of about finding out from the cultural side, finding out about who we're doing business with. Those can be really concerning for businesses and organisations. So being able to go to the Department of International Trade or the Institute of Export, or speak to us here at Barclays, just to better understand the routes to gain further insight is really important. So thank you very much for flagging that. Moving on, what do you believe, David, the biggest challenges are to international growth? And how can businesses overcome these?
Right, that's a good question. I think the first part of that answer, Paul, is where to go, who to speak to, where to go for advice, where to start, basically. The support shown by DIT and the Institute of Export is to help demystify much of the complexity around practical issues and give people the confidence to move ahead. Many Barclays clients have spoken to us about the less identifiable aspects, such as setting their business up for exports, ensuring staff are trained in the process of administration, and also how they can do business in a sustainable fashion. Businesses that look at exports as a key part of their strategy will ensure that issues such as these are baked into or woven into their processes, but there are still many other financial challenges that have yet to be borne in mind, such as different payment terms and payment security, credit arrangements, and the possible impact on the overall cash flow of longer supply chains and multiple routes to market. A final point I'd make on that is what I might term specification. It's our customer understanding how suitable that particular product is for overseas markets. Understand how transferable or flexible that offering is can be crucial to taking advantage of overseas opportunities.
Thank you, David. I think that those particular points there, especially around that, the payment structure and how that's going to impact on their existing business and operations, because you don't want to be doing one at the detriment of the other, is incredibly important. And also that piece around the specifications, but as well as that, it's understanding that just because they might be operating in a manufacturing sector, which I know that you know really well, doesn't mean to say that they couldn't also be operating as part of the sustainability aspect and that particular supply chain. So I think that that's really, really important. Thank you very much for flagging that. Moving on then, how is Barclays helping businesses overcome these challenges and actually maximise some of the opportunities that we've heard about?
So a good question. I think if I put that bluntly, it's the certainty of payment or removing the risk of not being paid as well. There's a trade-off called the risk ladder, where the way in which a client pays dictates how much risk they may be of non-payment. We help businesses understand what their risks may be when receiving payment up front or on open account, and can help business understand the benefits of using documentary collections or letters of credit. And the businesses may also need to provide some sort of surety guarantee to a beneficiary, such as advanced payment guarantee or an HMRC bond for duty deferments. Again, we can help with those requirements. And of course, we can help with all kinds of payment acceptance methods and foreign currency requirements. For example, if a business has incomings and outgoings in the same currency, using a foreign currency account can help manage, reduce, or extinguish foreign exchange risks.
Thank you, David. I think it's really interesting, that piece around bonds and people understanding what their responsibilities are under these different products and services that are out there. So thank you very much for that, brief but informative summary. But just a quick point from me, letters of credit products are available to clients of Barclays Bank UK PLC through a referral into Barclays Bank PLC. Now, referred products will be owned and administered by Barclays Bank PLC, and a portion of the revenue generated from referred products may be shared with Barclays UK PLC. Alternative service providers in the market may offer similar products, and all credit and risk products are subject to individual businesses' financial status, and terms and conditions apply. Apologies for the length of that disclaimer, but transparency is really important to Barclays. David, many thanks for your time today. It's been great to hear how Barclays is helping clients grow and secure their futures in this growing sector. So thank you very much.